You know that feeling when you realize you're putting way more into a friendship than you're getting back? Or what about when a connection that felt super close just fizzles out? Well, today, we're cracking the code on our friendships. We're going to figure out why they work, why they sometimes don't, and what this thing called attachment theory has to do with all of it. Look, if you've ever found yourself asking these questions, you are definitely not alone. It can feel like a total mystery, right? But the truth is, there are hidden patterns playing out behind the scenes. And by the end of this explainer, you'll know exactly how to spot them. So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with those unsolved mysteries, then I'll introduce you to our detective's toolkit. After that, we'll get into the four main friendship styles, learn how to build better connections, and finally, we'll reach our verdict. All right, let's dive right in. The frustrations we feel in our friendships, they aren't just random, and they're not just bad luck. Think of them as clues that point to really predictable patterns that shape all of our connections. And here is our first major clue. Get this. Research shows it takes, on average, about 34 hours of interaction to turn an acquaintance into an actual friend. 34 hours. I mean, think about that for a second. Does that sound super fast to you or incredibly slow? Your answer to that is one of the first hints to your own friendship style. So, how do we solve these friendship mysteries? Well, we need the right tools. And for our purposes, the best tool in the box is the powerful psychological framework of attachment theory. Basically, what attachment theory tells us is that our very first relationships, with our parents or caregivers, create a kind of blueprint. And this blueprint shapes how we connect with people for the rest of our lives. It pretty much dictates how we trust, how we look for connection, and how we handle closeness. And yet, we often see these attachment styles play out loud and clear in romantic relationships, but they are a huge deal in our friendships too. In fact, the more we care about a friend, the more our deep-seated attachment patterns are going to come to the surface. And this brings us to the real heart of our investigation today, the four main friendship blueprints. Understanding these is literally the key to decoding not just yourself, but the people in your life too. So here's a quick look at the four styles. We've got secure, anxious, dismissive, and fearful. Each one moves at a different pace, has a different core need, and comes with its own potential pitfalls. As we go through them, see if you can spot yourself. First up, we have the secure blueprint. These are those friends who are just solid. They're calm, they're steady, and they build friendships on a foundation of trust. They have no problem telling you what they need, they can hear what you need, and they're not going to freak out if you take a day to text them back. For them, friendship is all about mutual growth. Next up is the anxious blueprint. These friends are all heart. They warm up super fast, and they really crave that deep emotional connection. But, and this is a big but, their fear of being rejected can lead them into people-pleasing. And if their needs still aren't met, that can turn into resentment, and sometimes even gossip. What they're really looking for is just reassurance that they belong. Then we've got the dismissive avoidant, or DA for short. Think of these friends as slow burners. They'd much rather have a deep chat about politics or a new hobby than share their deepest feelings. Because for them, any hint of criticism is like kryptonite. Their core need is for total acceptance in a space where they won't be judged. And this is wild. It perfectly illustrates their pace. A DA might need 6 to 8 separate touch points, brief chats, a few texts, bumping into each other, before they're even ready to think about grabbing a coffee. It's not you, it's not personal, it's just how they're wired. Okay, I have to share this quote from the source material because it's just too good. Now, it's obviously a joke, but it kind of hilariously points to that classic DA vibe of preferring to connect over a shared activity rather than intense face-to-face emotional stuff. And finally, we have the fearful avoidant, or FA. This blueprint is all about internal conflict. On one hand, they want connection so badly, but on the other, they're terrified of it. This can make them seem really hot and cold. They're amazing at making you feel safe enough to open up, but they really struggle to do it themselves. They often operate on what are called covert contracts. Basically, they'll overgive and do everything for you and then secretly hope you'll just read their mind and give them what they need in return. Okay, so we've got the theory down. Now for the practical part. How do we actually use all this information to build better, healthier, more reciprocal friendships? Well, it really boils down to these 3 steps. First, you have to identify your blocks. What are you really afraid of in friendships? Rejection? Being taken advantage of? Second, get to know your triggers. If you always feel left out, what unmet need is that pointing to? And third, and this is a big one, assess the reality of the connection. Are your expectations matching up with what that person is actually able to give you? And that brings us to a super useful tool, understanding the 5 levels of friendship. You've got your acquaintances, your more consistent friends, all the way up to those level 5 can't tell them anything best friends. The key here is realizing that not every friend is supposed to be at every level, and that is more than okay. And this right here is where so much of our disappointment comes from. It's a mismatch of expectations. We're trying to get that deep level 5 ride or die connection from someone who, because of their own style or just what's going on in their life, is only available for a level 3. Learning to adjust our expectations isn't about lowering our standards. It's a total game changer for our own happiness. And that brings us to our final verdict. By really understanding these dynamics, we can actually move from a place of constant frustration in our social lives to one of real clarity and fulfillment. So let's just quickly recap the case. Number 1, the patterns in our friendships are not random. Number 2, getting to know your own blueprint is the absolute first step. 3, recognizing other people's styles helps you stop taking everything so personally. And finally, number 4, real, healthy reciprocity is built on clear communication and realistic expectations. And so that's the real question I want to leave you with. Now that you've got the toolkit, what does a truly fulfilling friendship look like for you? And maybe more importantly, what kind of friend do you want to be? The power to change these dynamics is really in your hands. Thanks for tuning into this explainer.